just to give you a bit of context, this is the story of a girl called Nissa who's 12. She goes to Fiordland with her family, which is exactly what I used to do when I was a kid. And she starts seeing these lights in the forest, which lots of the historic characters in the history books have also seen lights, though Nissa doesn't know this. She's determined to find out what they are. So when she's away on school camp, she runs off into the forest, which is very stupid, and children don't try this at home. And she runs off after the lights, gets horribly lost, which is very easy to do in Fiordland, and gets caught in a storm, which is also very easy to do in Fiordland. So I'm just going to read a bit from about there. The shower became a downpour. Rain crashed into leaves, forcing shrubs and plants to bow under the water's weight. Nissa hung her head too, trying to keep the rain from her face and out of her eyes. The entire sky had descended, turning the air around her into thick grey soup. She crouched, hugging herself into a tighter and tighter ball to try and hold the heat in close, to try and keep something, anything, dry. The rain was freezing. It had brushed past mountaintops on its way here. Nissa was cold. She was really cold. Mrs. Brennan's her teacher, Mrs. Brennan's voice rumbled through her head, as dark and as ominous as the sky above. Hypothermia. Miss Marshall, are you listening? They were back in the classroom, her teacher's marker pen squeaking across the whiteboard. Copy this down. Hypothermia is when your body gets down to an abnormally low temperature. It can be fatal. Now, what are the danger signs? What sort of symptoms should we look for? Someone who's shivering, a voice called from the back of the classroom inside Nissa's head. Someone who's starting to hallucinate, said another, or acting strange. The forest groaned. The sky above it crackled with thunder. Nissa knelt and pressed her forehead against the soft wood of a fallen tree. Help me, she whispered through the slippery brown bark, to no one and to everyone. Her teeth were chattering. She was shaking. She closed her eyes and concentrated on the rhythm of her own breathing, counting the breaths. 1, 2, keep going, 3, 4. She looked up again, one desperate scan through the forest in the rain to try and work out where she was. But the cloud was so low, all she could see was the grey. Nissa knew she had to move to keep warm, move or die, but she couldn't make anything do what it was supposed to do. She wasn't a quitter, but it was dark now, nighttime dark, and it was cold and her body was quitting on her. Her arms were rocks, her legs concreted to the forest floor. Her head was heavy too, though she couldn't stop it moving. It was nodding, flopping from one shoulder to another like a doll's. People didn't survive out here alone, not overnight, not without shelter. Nissa knew that. It was funny, really. She'd been a total fool, and now she was going to die out here. A nearly 13-year-old found dead in the pursuit of fairies. A minute later, or was it an hour? Time was slippery. Something huge was in front of her. She didn't recall having moved, but there it was where it hadn't been before. A remu tree, tall and solid and still. She crawled towards it, desperate for its shelter. It towered over her. She heard its voice in her head. This is my part of the forest, it said, not yours. You are not supposed to be here. I'm sorry, she whispered, reaching for it. I've really mucked up. She trailed her hands around its trunk, leaning into the wood, so much rain on her face and in her eyes that all she could see was a blur of brown. Its bark scratched her palms, but she was numb to the pain. She was numb to everything until her left hand slid from hard wood into nothingness and she stumbled, shocking herself awake. There was a hole. A big one. The trunk was completely hollowed out. She stared at it for the longest time, and then she climbed inside. It was warm in the centre of the tree. It smelt of campfire ash and sawdust and damp leaves, of old and ancient things. The thick trunk dulled the roaring of the rain. The sky, collapsed into a river of water, was out of sight. Nissa closed her eyes and felt sleep rushing at her. She was sinking into the trunk of the tree, sinking all the way down through the wood and the roots and the busy black earth. That's it.
Thank you, Sonya. So now we are we are going to speak to Mary McCallum from Cuba Press, award-winning publisher. And so you're very lucky to be able to hear from you. We've got 99 people on our Zoom now, which is very exciting. Oh, hold on. Make 100. That's very exciting. And then I can see your orders coming through as well. It's really great. Thank you so much. So Mary, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jenna. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Yes, I'm Mary McCallum of the Cuba Press. I'm speaking from our offices here in Wellington. So a little bit more freedom down here than some of you, I'm afraid. But it's been, I mean, I was planning obviously to fly up to the first amazing launch we were going to have for Sonya's book, but here I have to be. But this is kind of the next best thing, seeing all your lovely faces supporting it. So thank you so much. I'm speaking on behalf of three of us that make up the Cuba Press. So that's myself, Sarah Bolland and Paul Stewart, who are somewhere here in this mass of 100 faces. So it's, as I say, wonderful to be here, and really we're really doing this because lovely Jenna here, see her, time out, has said she'd do it. Like, it's such a thing. I just really wanted it to come out of a bookshop, not from anywhere else, because that's where we normally have our launches and where people arrive and look at all the gorgeous books and think how wonderful this all is. So to have it kind of in a bookshop, at least sourced from a bookshop with Jenna, you know, I can't thank you enough, actually, and the rest of the team say the same. We're just thrilled, really. I'm quite moved by this. We're so happy that we can finally launch this book into the world. It was supposed to happen earlier. We had to wait, and now here it is, and this is amazing. It's a book that sparked with us from the start, and I think because, you know, books hold the kind of the feeling of the person who's written the thing, you know, and there's this woman, Sonya Wilson, has written about her passion for adventure, her passion for magic, and a passion for the wilderness of this country. And all those things come through and weave beautifully into something that's, I think, really exciting. These are things, Sonya, that you had as a child, and you're passing it on now to other children, and what a gift it is, really. But of course, you know, all good children's books aren't just for children. We all know that, don't we? They're also for adults to read, and I loved reading it, thank you. So, and I know any other adult who can get their hands on it will enjoy it too. This book is a taonga, I think, and we are really proud of it. It's been a real pleasure to work with you, Sonya. You are such a professional, handling all things that an author must do. You know, from editing to marketing to handling a crisis, which this has been, obviously not getting the book launching as we'd hoped. So thank you for you and all that you bring to this collaboration, which is what a book is, between the author, the publishers, and all the people who are around it, like yourselves and the booksellers, and everybody really takes that book into the world. I want to acknowledge Madison Hamill, who co-edited the book, and my colleague Sarah Bolland for her role in the book design. She has such a great eye. And Paul, who's there in general support for the book and also acted as proofreader. Already reviews are excellent, sales are amazing. We expect great things for this book. So all I can say is congratulations, Sonya. And to all of you there, you're now the ambassadors for this book. You really can't just let it sit there in your brain or on your coffee table or on your bookshelf or in your hand. You have to tell people about it, okay? It's a busy world out there and people are confused by a whole lot of stuff. Tell them this is the book they need to read to escape what's going on right now, and they'll love it, believe me. So thank you. Cheers.
Thank you, Mary. And I'd really like to reiterate that this is the book you need to give to everybody. And a great thing about this is that it's locally distributed, so easy for New Zealand bookstores to get their hands on. So it's the perfect Christmas present. Next, I'm going to introduce Paula Morris, an award-winning author, a tireless advocate for New Zealand books and authors and bookshops and awards and everything. And you were also Sonya's teacher, right? So you're behind this every step of the way. So I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Kia ora, Jenna, tēnā koe. Kia ora, everyone, kia ora tātou. These aren't easy times for New Zealand writers and publishers, especially debut authors like Sonya, launching her very first book during lockdown. And in Auckland, as you know, we're not even allowed to cross the threshold of time out books. And that's not because I've been banned, not yet anyway. This week has seemed particularly difficult, I think, for reasons related to our literary sector as a whole, and for Sonya personally, with her injured back and her hair that seems to be growing as wild as uncharted parts of Fiordland. But I'm delighted to celebrate tonight with you all a sparkling new book by such an imaginative and accomplished writer. Now, some of us here at this event read the early drafts of Spark Hunter, which was then known as the Forever Forest or various other temporary titles during the 2017 MCW year at the University of Auckland. A number of books have appeared from the writers that year already, Rosetta Allen, Rose Carlyle, Amy McDade, Pip Mackay, Heidi North, and Michael Wilson. And some more names will soon join that list of talented writers from that year. It was a privilege for us all to read Sonya's novel as it developed and to learn more about Fiordland than we ever expected to know. So for example, I now know that it's a place where we can get eaten alive by sandflies. Sonya's deep love of the Deep South, her intellectual and imaginative curiosity, and her instinctive sense of a good story were all present from the start. She has worked really hard on this book and on her craft, and it's been worth it. She's also been well supported by her whānau, by her agent, Nadine Rubin, her publisher, you just heard from, Mary McCallum, and her editor, Madison Hamill. And kia ora to all you mavens who have helped bring this marvelous book into shops, libraries, and homes. I finished reading Spark Hunter on my iPad at lunchtime today, so I can tell you it's a page turner. It's funny and gripping and exciting. Sonya is a writer who is equally adept at realism and fantasy, and the world she's created of sparks and their natural realm is superbly realized. This is a place of enchantment and mystery, of history and of legend. It's an adventure story in the old-fashioned sense, where a 12-year-old girl gets to be smart and do things with life and death consequences. It's also really fresh and contemporary, from school power games to social media moments. I love reading a book where I'm laughing out loud one moment and feeling awed or terrified the next. I defy any of you to read pages 89 and 90 with a showdown on a beach set in 1785 and not feel exhilarated and profoundly moved. This is a book I really, really wish had been around when I was 12, because I would absolutely have loved it. Now, some of you also know Sonya as the brains and heart behind the Kiwi Christmas Books campaign, where we're asked to buy a brand new book for children by a New Zealand writer from a New Zealand bookshop and to donate it. These books go to city missions, women's refuges, and other charities around the country, and they're put into the hands of New Zealand kids at Christmas. This means New Zealand writers, publishers, and booksellers earn money, and our mokopuna get books to read. Last year, Sonya expanded this from Auckland to more than 9 cities around the country, even though some of us did not possibly realize there were more than 9 cities in New Zealand. And the result was thousands of books written and rather bought and given as gifts. Now, Jenna noted earlier that many of us at this virtual launch have already bought a copy of Spark Hunter. So may I encourage you all to buy another copy and donate it to this campaign. You can do this simply by buying one from Time Out, as they're one of the booksellers, acting as a point of collection. I thought today, if we weren't in level 3 here in Auckland, I would have bought Sonya some flowers to give to her in person. So instead, I'm going to buy 4 copies of Spark Hunter and donate them to Sonya's Kiwi Christmas Books campaign. Let's all be generous with our writers and readers here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Let's support each other and the immense talent we nurture here. So kia ora, Sonya. Congratulations on writing such a marvelous book. Tom and I are so proud of you and proud to be your friends. You've almost made me want to explore Fiordland apart from the sandflies and the apparent lack of luxury yurts there. But I hope to go there one day. And I know, again, I shall have been there once. And if I do, I know that I will be looking everywhere for sparks. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Paula. Thank you so much. And I really loved how you brought up Kiwi Christmas books, because that was next on my list. Sonya came to me a few years ago with this idea, and it's just really taken off. It's just the most beautiful, everlasting gift that you can give children in New Zealand, and also give a gift to New Zealand authors, New Zealand bookstores, and all that in between. So I really encourage you to take part in that cause. And so now I'm officially introducing Sonya, which I feel like we've been talking already to you before, but I'm so proud of that you're our Mount Eden authors. We claim you, and so we're so happy to have a Mount Eden resident have such a wonderful book in our store. I can tell you're very, very popular, and you're very, very loved, because I'm seeing all the messages of congratulation that come through on our web orders, and it's just wonderful to see. And I also really admire your beautiful school books that I read in the spin-off piece, because they felt quite familiar to me. It was just immaculate and amazing. And as a fellow a person of Te Waipounamu, it's just wonderful to have more stories like that for our young tamariki and adults as well. So this is my official introduction to you, and the rest of the floor is yours, really, until the end of this launch. So you can go wild, you can do whatever you like.
Kia ora, Jenna. Thank you so much. I had to give myself a good talking to about not crying, because I've been prone to doing that lately, and nearly did already when Paula was speaking. So it doesn't bode well. As she mentioned, I've also managed to slip a disc in my back. So I've spent the last 2 days not being able to walk or sit properly, nor able to write much of a speech in preparation for this. And I do have rather a lot of painkillers on board, so I'll apologise in advance if any of this doesn't make sense. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. It's, obviously not the launch I had in mind, or the one I'd hoped and dreamed of, and that, it was to be a gathering down the road here in Mount Eden of all you wonderful people in person, where we could high five and have a hug and, drink glasses of bubbles together. I was also really looking forward to seeing who would be the last man standing out of my group of friends who are journalists and my group of friends who are Southlanders. It was going to be a good battle, but we'll have to wait to see that. But I have to say this way, I can see all these people here from up and down the country, from Invercargill and Christchurch, from the UK, from Australia. It's amazing. So thank you all very much. I know everyone's got Zoom fatigue at the moment, so thanks for coming. As Jenna said, you can order my book online if you want, or just flip me a message, and I've got a few spare copies here from Time Art that I can sign for you and send your way. Despite the sort of circumstances, and the delay it's taken to get here, I actually have to say that I can still sort of hardly believe that I'm here with a published book. It's been a really long time coming. I first decided I was going to write this book when I was pregnant with my first child and about to go on maternity leave from TVNZ, because I thought, well, I'm not going to be working, so I'll have lots of time. I'll just, why not write a book? That proved to be incredibly foolish on two accounts. One, that obviously you've got no time when you've got a baby, and if you do have time, you've got no headspace for it. And the other being that there's no such thing as just writing a book, because writing a book is really hard. That was so long ago that the 10-year-old you saw next to me at the beginning, Art, that was when he was born. So that was a decade ago. This book sort of first got thought of, and then got put on the back burner a bit as I worked and as I looked after the kids and did all sorts of other things. Until I was, here's the 10-year-old. Hi. So when Art was just born, this book started, and now look at the size of him. He's huge. Thanks, Steve. But yeah, I decided to go and go and study creative writing because I realized that I didn't know what I was doing with writing a book. And I was shooting a story for the Sunday program at TVNZ with Witi Ihimaira, and he said to me, go and study at Auckland Uni under Paula Morris. And I said, oh, is she any good? And he went, yeah, she's good. And so I went and joined that cohort, as Paula mentioned, in 2017. And it was the best thing I ever did because I've made some lifelong friends and mentors, as well as sort of finishing that year of study with what would be the first draft of Spark Hunter. And it's taken me a few years of plugging away since then to kind of turn really terrible early drafts into something that was sort of better and then slightly better and then slightly better, and now to be something that I think I can admit I'm pretty proud of, albeit being a little bit nervous to let it into the world. So I've got a bunch of people to thank, and I'll try and be quick. First of all, to Jenna and Time Out, thanks for hosting this, Jenna. Thanks for being so supportive. Thanks for doing loads of book runs, contact lists, drop-offs and pickups. It's really appreciated, and thanks for being so cool about it all. To Mary and her team, Paul and Sarah at the Cuba Press. Mary, thank you for your lovely speech. And they're a small and dedicated team at the Cuba Press and incredibly busy. They produce lots of great work. So thank you very much for giving me your time. Thank you for taking this book on, and thank you for believing in it. And thank you for making it better. To Madison Hamill, who edited Spark Hunter, who Mary mentioned as well, thanks for your work in particular. You really are very wise and clever, and your attention to detail was amazing. We even had sort of email discussions about whether a mountain beach leaf was 1.5 millimeters across or 1.3 millimeters across, that sort of thing. So she was amazing. To my agent, Nadine Reuben Nathan, I still get a bit of a buzz out of saying my agent. But thank you, Nadine, for believing that this journalist could be an author. Because I was never sure if I could, but you always seemed sure. So thank you for that, and thank you for taking on this book. Thanks to my former classmates at the University of Auckland Creative Writing Masters Program, who I've mentioned. They are a group of fantastic writers and now friends, and you all continue to inspire me and impress me with your talents. Thanks in particular to Paula, who's just spoken, the convener of that program. Paula has done so much for me, not just with regards to this book, but with regards to so many things. You go and study under Paula, and she doesn't just send you off into the world. She's constantly helping you out in the years afterwards. Me and so many other young writers around the country. She does so much for the industry in this country. So Paula, thank you very much. And Tom, Paula's husband, thank you to you as well. And I'm very lucky to still have you both as friends as well as mentors. Thanks to the early readers of this book, of which there were a few, for your time and your helpful suggestions. And thanks to everyone who I kind of randomly rang up. Liam with my questions about anaesthetics, Ben and Abby down in Riverton, who I would sort of ring to check on whether you could in fact shoot a 14-point stag with a 308, or whether to ring up Dad when he was at work to check that the prevailing summer wind down Lake Te Anau was in fact a northerly. My niece Orla, who was at her first year of high school down in Dunedin, who I would ring up during class time to check whether kids still called each other dicks these days. She always answered her phone, even in the middle of class, so thank you, Orla, for that. Thanks also to Georgie Sigelkow, who helped me with the design of this book, and to Didi Putra, who turned a very rough sketch of mine into that amazing work of art. Thanks to Dan Bussell, who helped design my lovely author website, www.sonyakwilson.com, if you're interested. And thanks to Damon and Penny for your ongoing support, Kim and Liam, who often looked after my kids while I was in the midst of writing this in my master's year. So thanks, guys. There's lots of you, many of others who I've probably missed out. So I apologise, but I'll thank you all in person. My sisters, Nikki and Abby, and their partners and their kids, thank you guys for your ongoing support. And my mum and dad, who are watching from Invercargill. With Uncle Jim and Uncle Mike, I think I can see there. Hi, guys. Thank you guys for everything, but mostly thanks for taking us kids to Fiordland every year and letting us run wild in the forest and go hunting for fairies. I'm not sure if you knew that's what I was doing at the time, but I was, and thanks for letting us run free like you did. But yeah, most of all, I have to thank Pete and the kids who put up with me during the writing of this book and its many moods, because I lurched from this is the most terrible thing that anyone has ever written, it's going to be a disaster one day, to oh, it's okay, no, it's okay, it's good, the next, back to it's going to be a disaster the day after that. And they just put up with it and listened and encouraged and went to work and earned some money, because I wasn't earning money while I was writing this book. So thank you very much for that. I love you all very much, and you've been incredibly supportive. I wrote a piece for the spin-off that Jenna mentioned that was published on Friday, and please forgive me for repeating it here, but I was going to write some lovely speech, and as I said, I've done my back in, and so was lying down and at the hospital this morning and didn't get time to write it. So I'm just going to be cheeky and steal a few paragraphs from that to read to you, because it's pretty much what my book's about. The piece I wrote for the spin-off was about a social studies book I found in Mum and Dad's shed that I'd written when I was 12, when I was a little girl who went to camp in Deep Cove, just like my 12-year-old protagonist does. And this novel has come out 30 years exactly since that year. So that was 1991 I did that. I'm just going to read this book. Bit from the spin-off essay. So 30 years on, my novel begins where that old school exercise book ends, with a young girl enamoured of the forest she's lucky enough to visit, and her belief, just like I had back then, that something important and mysterious and ancient was hiding amongst those primordial trees. Spark Hunter is a fiction, a fantasy even, but it's not too much of a stretch to imagine the events of my novel actually occurring in a place like Fiordland. It's a landscape of shadows, ata whenua, te roa o te moko. It holds on to its secrets. It is a place that has attracted many explorers, adventurers, and sightseers over the years, a place so beautiful and wondrous, but also so vast and precarious that many who went in never came back out. It's true that there are parts of that forest still, even in 2021, where no human has set foot. As one of the characters in Spark Hunter says, anything could be hiding out there. So no wonder I was so keen on the place. Books are hard to write. They require a level of commitment and patience that for someone who's spent 20 years in fast turnaround or relatively fast turnaround news and current affairs before she attempted to write a full-length work of prose feels painfully slow and hard wrought. It takes a lot of study and perseverance, working and reworking, and a lot of help from other people. My novel has taken me years to finish, in between babies and kids and work and study and life, but I kept going because that story and its setting have stuck with me. My ongoing fascination with Fiordland has helped me to make Spark Hunter into the book that 12-year-old me would have wanted to read too, Paula. It is a bit of a cliche to say this, but this book is a love letter to Fiordland, both for kids like me then and adults like me now who nerd out on the green and the wild and the wonder of it all. Thanks, guys. That's my speech. Sorry, some of it was read.
Very good.
Oh, we were going. Do you know what I was going to do? One more thing before we go is I was going to do a giveaway, and I had this idea for a giveaway. If there's any kids still watching, I can see that some of them are. I want you guys, you kids, or even you adults, if you're keen, to do the best impression of this book cover. So send me a photo of you standing in some native bush. I found this in my garden, get a slingshot, stick it in your back pocket and take a photo of yourself, like the cover of this book, and get your mum and dad to send it to me, or stick it on Instagram or email it or whatever you want to do. And the best photo, I'm going to adopt a kakapo for the person who sends me the best photo. So the Kakapo Recovery Project down in Invercargill and Fiordland, who support kakapo conservation, they let you adopt a kakapo and you give them some money and they give you a certificate and you choose your bird and you get a thing. And so I'll do that for one of you kids that sends me a cool photo of that. So that would be very cool to see them. Thanks,
I
Gina.
can't wait to see those photos. That will be amazing. And there's lots of places around you where you can replicate the beautiful
Totally.
pictures.
Even in the middle of Auckland, there's loads of native bush, so you can get out there. Yeah.
And we're spending a lot of time outside these days. If everybody has a glass of something or a little fist pump, well, let's all give a cheers to Sonya. Congratulations.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, Sonya.
It's been such a pleasure to host you by Zoom. And I'm quite overwhelmed with all the orders that are coming in, and so pleased to see little notes saying please donate to Kiwi Christmas Books. So that's so lovely. Thank you so much. If you've bought a book, just give us a few days, because what we do is we get the books and then we ferry them to Sonya. She signs them and then she drops them off. So it's slightly slower but still very efficient. So just wait for that little courier track and trace email to come through, and then you know it'll be on the way. And if
I'll start signing some of them here tonight.
Sounds good. And if you've ordered a pickup, we'll email you when it's ready and signed for you. So just hold tight for that. I bet you can't wait to read it, but it should be by the weekend. So that's us for this evening. It's been, you know, I've been by myself in this shop all of level 3, well, with my bubble, and I just yearn to have the community back in again when it's safe enough. So this is the next best thing. Thank you so much. Thank you to Mary, Paula, Sonya, and everyone that's here. If you need anything, just email us. We'll get it sorted for you. And congratulations again, Sonya. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Gina. Good night, everyone. Thank you.